So, have you ever written a perfect Selenium script only to have it fail in the next day just because the element has vanished from the DOM? Chances are it's time to level up your Locator game. So, in today's video, we are diving into one of the most powerful ways to find element, that is using the XPath. XPath is nothing but XML path language. It is used to navigate through the elements and attributes in an XML or a HTML document. While we talk about XPath, XPath helps you to locate element based on the structure, attributes, or even text context of it. While CSS selectors are fast and often simpler, XPath gives you the power of logic, like selecting based on text, structure, or combination of attributes. Okay. So let's get started with what XPath is and what are its categorization. So in general, XPath is categorized as the first one is absolute and the second one is relative. Now, absolute XPath basically starts from the very top of the page and it walks down step by step. Now, if I take my page here and I try to inspect, now the very first element that I see here is the HTML. Let me zoom it a bit. So I'm concentrating here. So the very first element that I see here is the HTML tag, right? Now moving down, we have head and body on the same level, right? If I open body, so it goes to a division tag called page wrapper. Inside this, again, I have header, article, and footer, right? Now my main content is pasted under the header and my article. So header is covering just one second. Header is covering just these two elements, and my article contains the entire page content that I have. Again, footer is something that is the end of my page. Now, when I want to navigate to say I have an element, so say this is the input box and I want to navigate to this particular input box. So how do I navigate? So first thing is I'll have to locate this. So let's inspect this. So I found the input box is here. Now to write an absolute XPath, you'll have to navigate from your HTML until the elements location. So to do that, let's try and write it here. So first thing is HTML. Inside HTML, I have body division. So let's write it similarly. I have body. Inside body, I have what? So this is my body. Inside body, I have a division tag. Inside division tag, what I have? So inside this, I have an article tag. So article, inside article, what I have? I need to hit this section, right? And then a division. And then inside that division, I have this input. So I'll write article and then section, then division, then input, right? Or did I make some mistake? So I have section, division, inside division. Oh, there is another division and then an input, right? So inside this division, I have another division and then an input, right? But if you see this highlights the field. In a way, it's fine. But if you see here, there are 10 objects that are matching to this particular XPath, right? So how do you resolve it? Now, the first thing we want to do here is we need to backtrack. Okay, like when we say backtrack, I wrote division. So my division still has 1 of 1. So there is only one division that is found, right? Now inside this division, I gave another division. Let's see how many divisions are found now. So it says it found 14 division tags, right? But I am concentrating only on the first one. So to make sure that it's pointing to the first one, you will have to give a reference like an array. So you have to point to the first division tag, right? So it comes to the first division tag. Now inside this first division tag, I want an input. So this is my input here. Now how many element it shows? It shows 1 of 1. So this is an absolute XPath. All right. Now the problem with absolute XPath is, if at all this hierarchy changes or any of the element order is disturbed here, a division tag moves from here to some other location, right? This whole XPath would stop to work. You will no longer be able to figure out your object using this XPath. So let's head back to our Python IDE and then we'll see how to use this, right? So we have this XPath that we just created. So this is an absolute XPath, and what we are going to do, we are locating an input box and we want to enter some text in it. Okay, so to enter, I'm storing it in a variable element, and I'll use this element dot send keys, and I'll say entered texts. All right, let's run this and see if this fills up the field or not. All right, so it says entered texts. Simple, just the way how you are locating your elements, nothing fancy here. Okay, so and moving on from this, we are going to our relative XPath. Okay, now relative XPath are, or let's say relative XPath are more flexible, right? It starts with a double slash and it lets you search from anywhere in the DOM, right? So you don't have to have a reference from the top of the page. You can start anywhere from the page, wherever you feel you'll be able to find a unique reference to that particular element, right? So let's try to use, or let's try to build a relative XPath for the same text field. So this is my XPath and I know the ID of it is absolute field, right? So I can write an XPath using the ID as well. So how do I do that? So I know this particular tag. I know this particular tag is an input tag and I want to write a relative. So relative XPath starts with double slash and I'll write input. Inside input, to give a reference of what attribute I am looking at. So I'll open a square bracket to write the attribute and I'll say at the rate. You have to give at the rate while you use XPath. Okay. Give an ID is equals to, and in single quotes, I'll write relative field. All right. And I'll close my square bracket. Done. Now again, if you see here, it shows one of two. Why it shows? Because the first one it is trying to search is just a text. And this is the actual element that we are targeting, right? So this should work for us. So again, I'll go back to my IDE. In here, I'm going to use the same XPath, right? So I'll say relative field. Let's execute these two. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to blink. Okay, I have written a function. It's here. So what I'm doing is I'm just scrolling to that particular element here and I am trying to just change the color of it so that it becomes a highlight effect or a blink effect. Okay. So let's go back to my script and I'll run this. Okay. When we are dealing with XPath, there's not much that I have to show you in code level. It's all in the browser. Okay. So you saw this highlighted. It entered text here and it highlighted this relative XPath. All right. When we highlighted this, so this was absolute and relative XPath. Now let's understand a basic syntax breakdown. Okay. So you can use either input, which is the tag name, and then an attribute attached to it, say ID, name, placeholder, or anything, right? So from my page, so if I inspect, it has type, ID, name, placeholder, right? So I can use either of the property, whichever is unique, and the attribute, and I can give a reference here, input, which has an ID of this. You go and find this element, right? Or I can also write an element which has text login in it. Okay. And when I give a star here, it means that you can start anywhere in the page. You don't have to be strict about where you have to start. Wherever you find any element with text login, you just give me. And this element can be, I'm not bounding it. It can be an input field, it can be a label, it can be a text. Okay. So it can be anything, right? So that's why we are giving a star here. The third one is where we are combining two different attributes. So I'm writing, I want an input which has a type email and name also should be email, right? So again, if you go back to my page here, so let's see where my email is. So let's right click, inspect. So it says type as text and name as email, right? Now this is not the one that we are referring because I have another email field here, right? So I'll inspect this and see it says type as email, and what was the other one? Name is also email. Is the name email? No. So this is also not highlighted. Now let's check this field. Right click, inspect. What is this? Name is email. One sec. Let's do reverse engineering here. We'll copy this. We'll do a control F and search. So this is the email that we are referring to, right? So what is this? It is email, and the type is email, the name is email, right? Now these are the basic syntax how you are going to use. The first one just shows you how you can use an attribute in your relative XPath. The second one shows you a relative XPath which doesn't have a type specified to it. Rather, I have given a text property or text attribute, and it can find any type of element which has a text of login, right? Now, the third one, we are searching here. We are trying to combine two attributes. Okay, we can use and or. You can also use or here. Now, moving on. So the next one is a text-based approach. Okay. Now, what we are doing is we are trying to figure out a element which is a button and has text of submit. Now, if you see the difference here, we are not giving any @ annotations for text. Why is that? Let's head back to my application and see. So this is my submit button. If I inspect this, so this is where I want you to focus. Okay. Now when I say get me the text property and I'm not giving any @ that means I am targeting the outer text of this HTML. It's not something which is within my tag. Okay. It's definitely inside the opening and closing of your tag, but it is not written as an attribute in your tag. So if you are targeting an attribute, you have to give @. If you are just targeting the text property, you have to give text, and that is a function again. So text, open and close brackets, right? So we have to write text, open, close bracket, and submit. And this, using this property, find an element which is of type button, right? And in the next one, again, I have written use the text property, this reset fields, and find any web element that is there in my page. Okay. So if you go to your Selenium and if you just copy this, again, paste. So this is going to highlight your reset field element. Okay. You see, this highlights your reset field. Now the next thing we have implicitly discussed earlier, it's about indexing. So for indexing, you just have to specify, you just have to open a square bracket and specify which index you are targeting. So here what I am targeting, I'm targeting an input of which is on the third occurrence, right? And here also I am targeting an input which is in the third position. Now see, there are two things to understand here. Okay. Now when I am targeting this input of 3, what happens is in your page, it's going to find the third input box and it is going to highlight. So let's see it one by one. Let's say the first occurrence. So the first occurrence is here. Now if we click on the second occurrence, this is here. Now if I click on the third occurrence, this is here, right? So what happens here is, this is the third occurrence in your page. Okay. Whereas when you are giving the position 3, now position 3 is in your web page wherever there is a input box, consecutively the third position input box is going to be selected. All right. So you get the difference. I'll repeat it again. So if you are searching using the input of third position, it's going to search through your entire page and give you the third occurrence of the input. Whereas if you give input and give a position of 3, that means it is going to search within your parent element. So my parent element or my element that I have given is input. So wherever there are input in a sequence or there are 3 consecutive inputs, the third input would be selected here, right? So to this to work, your parent should also be an input, right? All the consecutive web elements should be input. Among those input, it would pick the third occurrence of it. All right. So it actually takes consideration of what is your preceding element. Okay. So if it is of type input, then only this will work. If that is not the case, this will not work. So if you check in the application, let's go back here. And if I check in the application, if I give the position 3, it comes and highlights a different text box when compared to the input that we were giving earlier, right? So the first one that we gave came and highlighted this particular third text box. Whereas when I give the position reference, it is highlighting this particular input box. Why? Because the earlier 2 tags were also input. So it checked wherever there was the third occurrence of a particular text box, it came and highlighted. Okay, moving on. In today's video, we have seen XPath, relative and absolute. And with that, we had seen how to use the basic syntax or the text-based XPath. We had seen how indexing and positioning works. And in the next one, we are going to talk about dynamic XPath and functions like contain, starts with, and how do you navigate through following siblings, ancestors, and other concepts. All right. So that's all I had for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Till then, don't forget to like, comment, and share your XPath struggles in the comment. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.